Hello, how are you this week? I am itchy. Itchy for reading. I'm very sorry. Now, steady yourselves and hold on to something sturdy because I'm going to say something wild. I like books. I know, you're welcome for my bravery. I like many things about books. I like the stories, I like the feel of a book in my hand, I like the smell. When I used to work at Waterstones, my friend Mikey and I would open a new box of books and go, ah, this one smells like... And there was a very specific smell that Deathly Hallows had. And if you're also a book sniffer, the likelihood is, by saying that sentence, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Pop it in the comments. And as you can see, I have a lot of books. The problem is, I used to have more. Over the course of several house moves, I'm gonna be honest, I felt guilty making the men I had paid money to move my stuff lift lots of heavy books. Actually, I also think in your 20s, when you move, like when you've just moved uni or you move the first couple of times after you've moved to a big city, you do a lot of it by yourself. You think, well, no, I'll move these things. And so it's natural to want to make yourself move as little as possible. The older you get, the more you realize, hang on, I'm paying you a load of money here, you can do the lifting. I wish I'd had that energy before because maybe I'd have got rid of less of my books. But we did have to strip everything back and now we're here. I don't know how many books they are. There are some over there as well. There are some on that shelf. But what you might be able to see behind me is that this shelf is now sort of full. And as you can see, I have little piles of books where there's no place to put them. So I'm probably gonna need a new shelf soon. And I wondered if I could speed that process along by doing a book haul, bookshop crawl, but I'm gonna be creative about it. We'll get to that in a minute. First things first, I'd like to get a running tally. I'd like to get a stock check. So give me a second, I'm gonna go count the books. All right, the scientific experiment is complete. We have 255 books on these shelves. Of those, how many have I read? Well, it's a good question. What do I constitute as read given that a number of these are cookbooks? Well, I consider a cookbook read if I flicked through it and made something from it. Crucially, made something from that cookbook. Also, I have a few academic books. If I've used them and cited them either in a video or in my dissertation, I'm constituting that as read. So I'm gonna give you a second to think about what you think would be a respectable number of books read for that total. Do you have a number in your head? Okay. Is it higher or lower than my actual total of read books? 109. I'm gonna be honest with you, I think that's relatively good innings, especially because a number of these books I've read more than once. And given that for the past 3 years or so, I've not really been in a reading space. Like, I, during the pandemic, couldn't focus on anything for a while. The only book I read in all of 2020 that was completely new was this one. It was Richard Osman's Thursday Murder Club. And I read it because I had to look after Kiki. Here is Kiki. I was so nervous that something would happen to her that I basically just stayed in the room with her at all times and read a book cover to cover, and it was lovely. It was a wonderful weekend. Thanks, Kiki. So yeah, I think given the circs, that's a pretty respectable tally. Now then, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to add to that tally and make the to be read pile, frankly, larger than it has any right to be? Were you looking down my top? Well, London has a number of really lovely secondhand bookshops, charity shops, antiquarian bookshops. Won't be going there, bit expensive, and I'm on a budget. Should have mentioned that actually, for this challenge I wanted to be on a strict budget, so I probably won't be buying any new books. I might, but I will predominantly be going to secondhand bookshops up and down this fair city. To try and keep me on track and to give my trip out purpose, what I've done is I've found a BookTube challenge, because technically this is a BookTube video. So this is the Do I Have That Book challenge. Now, the way this challenge normally works is you go around your bookshelves and you see whether or not you have a book that already matches the brief, the question. Instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the 20 questions, and every time I get to a new bookshop, I'm gonna have a random number generator between 1 and 20, whichever question it throws up, I'm gonna find a book that matches that brief. So this isn't one of the questions, but if it were to say, do you have a book with a green cover? I'm gonna find a book with a green cover, and that will be the book I buy. So the idea is to get not just an array of new books to add to my potential new shelf whenever I can find one in the bin room, let's be honest, but also to try and get some books that wouldn't necessarily be ones that I would pick out on my own, if that makes sense. Ones that I would go into the shop and go, that's a Dan book. I want to widen my horizons, or at the very least, I want to widen the potential of what books I could read one day if I ever actually got around to it. So this is a book haul slash bookshop crawl slash, I guess, mini tour of London. I'm gonna go and get my shoes on, get myself ready for the day, and I'm gonna leave you in the hands of sponsorship, Dan, because this video has a sponsor. Dan? Thank you so much, Dan, and hi to all of you, where I'm thrilled to say that yes, indeed, this week's video is sponsored by our friends HelloFresh. For the uninitiated, HelloFresh are a meal delivery service that I have been using for over a year now. Pretty much since I moved into this flat, I've been using it, because on a day like today when I'm racing around town doing my business, it's really comforting in the back of my mind to know that I'm gonna have everything I need to get dinner on the go as soon as I walk in the door, because I know I'm gonna be ravenous. And with HelloFresh, you pick out your meals in advance, they deliver the box to you, so you know exactly what you're gonna have, and the box is gonna contain everything you need to make yourself something delicious. And it's fully customizable, which means not only do you choose what meals you're gonna get, you can choose how many meals you get and for how many people. This week, I've gone with 4 meals, 2 servings each, so I've got lunch and dinner for the whole week sorted, basically. And that even stretches to, you might find yourself busy one week, so you don't need a box, you can just skip it. So I like how it just sort of fits into my life, even when my life takes me to far-flung fancy places like Stockport. And they have loads of different recipe categories. So there's family style, there's classic recipes. This one here is a childhood classic, which I find quite adorable. But the one I'm making is a rapid recipe, so it's gonna be out the box and in my gob cave in just about 20 minutes. Genuinely, I highly recommend HelloFresh. I've been having a wonderful time with them, and if you'd like to give it a go, use this code that's on. How modern is this? There's a code on the screen for you. Just scan it and have a go. And get 60% off your first box, and get into this, 25% off your next 8 boxes. What a treat. Thanks so much again to HelloFresh for sponsoring. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna send you back to normal video, Dan. Dan? In the words of Chris Pratt, let's a go. It's a wellness day. Is spring springing? Who knows? Because let's be honest, it was a couple of weeks ago and then changed its mind. But we're not going to look at gift horse in the mouth. I'm enjoying this little wander through. I don't actually really know what this part of London is called. Is it Bloomsbury? Is it King's Cross? I don't know. Either way, we're going to a place called Scoob Books, which is books backwards. But I had it recommended. I had it recommended. I watched Lena's video and she went to Scoob Books and I thought, well, I'm going to go there. And she said it had a very big theatre bit, which kind of makes sense because RADA's nearby. What's happened is I've got me up a true random number generator. I put in the parameters of 1 and 20. Let's see which question it's going to throw up for our first adventure. Number 18, which means, quite appropriately, a book that was turned into a movie. Very on brand. Let's go exploring. I try and be classy, but I'm a basic boy, and if I see something like this, I will giggle. I think that was quite a successful trip. The thing about theatre books is there were very many of them, and they are great, and I find them interesting, and I'd love to get some more academic books about theatre, but they have a time limit. There were a few there that were quite cool, but they were written in 2007, 2009, and there has been 15 odd years of history and perspective since then, especially the past, like, I guess 5 or 6. We've had a real reckoning, so there's a lot that hasn't really been addressed in those books that would allow for new reflection. Do you know what I mean? Next up, we're going to a place called Judd Books, which I'm going to because it was on a list of cool secondhand bookshops, and it's nearby. Those are my criteria. In order, has someone recommended it? Is it kind of close? If it's kind of close, yeah, you might as well see what happens. Time to generate a new number. Oh, 17. Let's have a look at what that is. A book between 500 and 510 pages long. I'll give it the old college try. Well, 2 shops in and we've reached our first critical failure. Fascinating little shop, everything piled way high, but I couldn't find anything in there that quite fit the brief. I figured that looking for a book with between 500 and 510 pages was probably going to be a tricky ask. So I changed to a different brief, was looking for a book written by someone who was already known for something else. That didn't work either. If anything, that made it more tricky. I feel like that wasn't quite the right venue for it, so I've left without anything, which is devastating. Only the second shop. However, I am going to pick up the slack, so I'm nipping to an Oxfam bookshop on, I don't know where it is, it's near Tottenham Court Road. I always think it's bigger than it actually is, but we're going to see whether or not I can find one book of either of those briefs. I also thought I would nip quickly around the corner from Judd Books because there is the exterior for the TV sitcom Black Books. I thought there were some secondhand books out front. I thought for a second I'd found one. Alas, no. And then I went inside, I think scared the poor shop assistant clean out of his skin because it's a proper antiquarian. I don't even know what the clientele for a bookshop like that is. But it's not me. Okay, huge news, we are back on track with one of the 2 prompts. I'm not going to tell you which till later on when I reveal all, but we are now on our way to Waterloo Station because underneath Waterloo Bridge there's a book market, which is quite cool, right by South Bank, sort of near BFI. So it's time to generate a new prompt. Are you ready? Here we go. Oh, 18. Hang on, I feel like I've done that one already. Yes, I have. Not that one. Oh, 15. A book written by an author with the same initials as you. This is going to be tricky. Let's see what we can do.
Well, that was, if I may, a huge success. I really thought for one second I wasn't going to find anything at all, and then I turned a corner and snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. We'll get into it in a bit. It's 4 o'clock. I think I've got about an hour left, so one more book, because I'm going to go outside of central London for this one. So 2 more stops. I've come out to Hammersmith. I used to live around here, and I'm visiting 2 final bookshops that I would go to a lot when I did live around here. One of which is the Amnesty International bookshop, and the other is another Oxfam Books, but it's a really twee dinky one where I found some really cute cookbooks back in the day. Current challenge is find a book with a clock on the front cover. I feel like this is going to be really tricky, but God loves a tryer, as I always say. Okay, so I'm back. I had a very successful jaunt, I think. Slightly stressful. Didn't think I was going to make it come true, and in fact there are a couple that I didn't manage. But what book has a clock on the cover? Like how is it so hard to find a book with a clock on the cover? That makes no sense to me. Also, I found like 3 books that either had clock in the title, or time, or made mention of hours, none of which had clocks on the cover. I don't even know if I'm gonna check. Do I have a single book with a clock on the cover? Not that one, maybe this one. Yeah, alright, that's got a clock on it. No, it hasn't. No clock there. Do any of you have? I think it can't be done. Oh, hang on. Yeah. Is that? Yeah, a clock. It's got a clock on it. Come through his dark materials. Never read it. Okay, let's get to the bits of the challenge that I was able to complete, shall we? So the first one was a trip to Scoob Books, and it was a book that has been turned into a movie. And there were a lot of good options here. This happens to be my specialty subject. I wrote my dissertation on the art of adaptation in cinema, and I see a lot of movies in a year, so I kind of had a stock knowledge of this one's a film, this one's a film. But I decided to go for one, and I was quite pleased with this choice. I decided to go for Ian McEwan's On Chesil Beach, in hardback no less. A short novel of remarkable depth and poignancy by a writer at the height of his powers. I'll be the judge of that. It's July 1962. Edward and Florence, young innocents married that morning, arrive in a hotel in the Dorset coast. At dinner, in their rooms, they struggle to suppress their private fears of the wedding night to come. A story of lives transformed by a gesture not made or a word not spoken, which I'm into. Also, I've never seen the film. So what might be fun about this one is if I give this a read, then see the movie, and see how they compare. And also, it's only 166 pages long. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with myself on that one. Then we went on to Judd Books, unsuccessful. Went around the corner to Black Books, unsuccessful. So I nipped down to the Oxfam Bookshop near Tottenham Court Road. We had 2 prompts there. The first one was a book between 500 and 510 pages long, which we all agree was a challenge. So I gave myself a backup prompt, which was a book written by someone who's already famous for doing something else. Would you believe, in the Oxfam Books, I did actually manage to find a number of books by people who are more famous for something else. There's like journalists or comedians, and I was trying to decide which one of those I was going to buy. But then, come through, I think this is the one occasion where you can arguably judge a book by its cover, because I saw a book that looked about the right size, and I tried a few sci-fi books that were way too long. Either I was getting 450 pages or 800 pages, nothing even close to 500. And then, can you believe it, I found this! Scarlett Thomas, The End of Mr. Y. I was like, interesting. I opened it, flicked to the back, 502 pages. So I had no choice but to buy this one because it was kind of serendipity. When Ariel Manto uncovers a copy of The End of Mr. Y in a second-hand bookshop, see, it's kind of serendipity. She can't believe her eyes. She knows enough about its author, the outlandish Victorian scientist Thomas Loomis, to know that copies are exceedingly rare, and some say cursed. With Mr. Y under her arm, Ariel finds herself thrust into a thrilling adventure of love, sex, death, and time travel, the 4 main food groups. I read the first paragraph and I was like, it survived. So I took it and decided to carry the celebrity one to my next stop, which was Waterloo Station. And here is something wonderful. Interestingly, they had a copy of The Clocks by Agatha Christie, but that was before I got the prompt about clocks, so I didn't buy it. They have a lot of different books. They have children's books, they have prints, they have some first edition Penguin paperbacks, the orange ones. But crucially for our pursuit, they had a massive science fiction section. So I was looking at it because I gave myself another secondary prompt just in case. So we were looking for either a book written by a person who was known for something else, or a book written by an author who had the same initials as me. So I'm going through sci-fi, looking to see if I can find anything by someone with the same initials as me, and what do I found but this? This is William Shatner writing a piece of pulp science fiction from the 1990s. 1991 this came out. Look, I mean, first of all, look at her on the cover. She's fabulous. Life has been sweet for Jake Cardigan since his successful rescue of Professor Leon Kitteridge from the clutches of drug lord Sonny Hikari. After 4 years in cryogenic suspension for a crime he didn't commit, he's free, unemployed, and in love with Beth, the professor's beautiful daughter. I was obsessed. I had to have it. This is a book book that I would never have bought in a million years, but because it matched the prompt and because it looked so... Also, I have to be honest, when I read the sentence, he's been in cryogenic suspension for a crime he didn't commit. How can you not want to read this? I don't even think he probably wrote it, but I'm in. I'm in for the wild ride. And then I was looking for the author with my same initials, and I found one by, I think it was David Lagerkrantz. It was the sequel to Stieg Larsson's Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series written by someone else, but I haven't read that series, so it felt like I'm not gonna buy this book, even though it is its own new thing with the characters that I don't know and recognize. Because at the end of the day, I want to put books on the shelf that I'm gonna enjoy, or I'm inclined to read. And I was all about to give it up for a bad job and go to the next place when I found Skullduggery Pleasant by Derek Landy. It is absolutely a children's book. With Serping dead, the world is safe once more. At least that's what Valkyrie and Skullduggery think, until the notorious Baron Vengeance makes a bloody escape from prison and dead bodies and vampires start showing up all over Ireland. I've never read one of these books. I don't know anything about the author. And there was a little part of me that was like, am I really gonna buy a children's book? But then I was like, sod it. You're never too old. And I thought to myself, I could have far worse Sundays than sitting inside if it's a bit rainy reading something like this. But like, sod it. So I can do what I want. And I want to read Skullduggery Pleasant at the age of 33. So then we were on to the Bloody Clocks one. And as we've discovered, it's a rare thing. And instead, we'll go to the final prompt, which I gave myself, which was a book based on another fictional story. And this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. So I have found something, and I'm going to be honest with you, it was quarter of an hour before the shop closed. I was getting a bit peckish. I was absolutely gasping for a brew. So I had a spark of inspiration when I found the Jane Austen Book Club. There are going to be some of you who say, damn, that doesn't count. I disagree. In California's Sacramento Valley, already, I'm in. 6 people meet once a month to discuss Jane Austen's novels. They are ordinary people, neither happy nor unhappy, but all wounded in different ways, all mixed up about their lives and their relationships. Over the 6 months they meet, marriages are tested, affairs begin, unsuitable arrangements become suitable, and under the guiding eye of Jane Austen, some of them even fall in love. This is so my vibe, and I know you know it is. So I thought, you know what, sod what anyone says, this does count. It is about Jane Austen's fictional works. Also, it provided a nice full circle moment because the first and last book I bought on this day were both turned into movies. So you can have your opinions, but you shall keep them to yourself. There you go, 5 books, what I bought to try and shock myself into reading and flesh out my soon-to-be procured bookshelf. Ta-da! This was a really fun challenge. I had a really nice time. I think what I might do is go through the rest of the prompt. Maybe if you enjoyed this, let me know and I'll make another video wherein I do the rest of the challenge, see what I'm missing from the prompts and complete the list. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any recommendations or if you've read any of these, especially this one, and you have thoughts, please do pop it in the comments and let me know what you think. Be good, happy reading, and I'll see you next time I make a video. Love you, bye.